Public hearing meeting called to order. Roll call, please.
Councilman Gann.
Here.
Councilman McBride.
Here.
Councilman Harrell.
Here.
Councilman Stamey.
Here.
Councilman Hatmaker.
Here.
Councilman Farah.
Here.
Mayor Burton.
Here. The public hearing will be covering three ordinances. The first is ordinance number 635. This is the mobile food truck vending. Would anybody have any comments on that? Speak now or forever hold your peace. The second ordinance is number 639. This is the zoning ordinance amendments. This is all second and final readings. Anyone like to speak on that? Yes, sir. Please approach the podium, state your name and address, please.
Craig Hansen, 307 North Main Street in Clinton, Tennessee. And I'm the president of River and Valley Development, which owns the Doherty Building. So I have several comments on the proposed code. So I'll just go through them, and then I may have one or two questions. On page 2 of the code, where it is listing in sections 1 and 2, those uses that are permitted, it includes restaurants, retail, trade, limited services, etc. I believe that it should also include hotels, inns, and lodges. That may have been the intent of the reading, but I think it should be.
Right now,
clear.
this just simply applies to the downtown area.
Just to the downtown area. Yes, that's correct. So the
This
downtown,
is
including
Market Street area.
the Market Street. So the Doherty Building is right on the Market Street in the
Well,
top.
it may go,
It's in the historic.
yeah. It's in that
it is-
area.
it is- So
that,
these regulations would apply to them. There's
Right.
24 units in the top 2 floors plus 16 boarding house rooms that can be developed for a variety of different uses. So in those cases, for example, historic inn or lodge would be an appropriate purpose. That's very similar to what is currently considered, or very similar to what it was its original use. So I just wanted to make it clear that that would be an acceptable purpose.
I would say if there were an issue there, you could, come before Planning Commission, and that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, I just would've thought it might be better to make it actually clear in the thing. In point number 9, under A, it says a minimum of 5 feet or 65% along a public sidewalk shall be kept unobstructed and maintained as a clear zone. I'd like to have that personally defined as, in parentheses, after public sidewalk is defined as built and maintained by the city. There's 2 sidewalks along my building that were built by the original owners and that are the property of the building, within the original property of the building. So those sidewalks that are built and maintained by the city is what a public sidewalk should be defined as. Okay, so that's a comment that I have there.
I think both of those
Could be
suggestions are good suggestions. I would recommend, and we can always add those to the ordinance when it's appropriate. But I would recommend you taking that to Planning Commission, and that Planning Commission recommendation will come to the council.
Okay, I'll just continue, just for the record, if.
Yes, thank you,
Oh,
please.
Under section B, sub-bullet 1C, where it says residential development shall provide a minimum of 1 on-site parking space per dwelling unit. I believe that should be stricken from the proposed code changes there. I'm not the only one that believes that should be stricken. As Gianno Longhi and other folks say, Clinton has absolutely no problem with downtown parking. This is a reduction from the 2 units to 1 unit, but I think that it's not needed, that the developer is going to develop, if necessary, the parking spaces that are necessary for him to support his development. That's typically the way that it works, and I think that should be actually stricken. If it isn't stricken, I think it should be modified to say something along the lines, or where current public or street parking is not available within 500 feet, because as we all know, there's a huge public parking space within the downtown area. would provide ample parking space.
I think also in that case too, I think it'd be dependent on the developer to provide that space and not for it to be public space.
Yeah, no, and it could be for a developer to provide that space, but in some cases, for example, if you're only developing a minimum number of development units or apartments or that type of stuff, it's very typical in downtown areas that we want to increase the density with, that the only parking that is available is street parking. And that's what actually makes a downtown vibrant and good, is that you increase the density. I would argue that actually sometimes having to look for parking spaces not only is expected in vibrant downtowns, it's a sign of success that downtown is actually developing. And you guys all know that by going to successful downtowns, I'm sure, in all your visits.
That particular item deals with single-family dwellings.
Is it only single-family dwellings? Okay,
Yeah.
I apologize, but I do believe it's listed elsewhere in the document also.
And that's obviously another item that's subject to change.
Okay, thank you. I did have, this is one question, is where are the guidelines for appointing the members of the CH zoning commission, the Clinton Historic Zoning Commission? They're not included in this, but I'm unfamiliar with how those members are appointed.
Those are appointed
So
by
they're-
me with approval from council.
And is there a training program or for those folks or are they just public citizens? Not that I'm saying public citizens,
They're-
obviously we want citizens of the
they're
city
public citizens.
participating. But it's also important to have them aware of how towns develop and how historic structures are maintained and that type of stuff. So I believe it's very important for all of our board members that are making important decisions in how the town is being developed to have appropriate training and briefings in those areas of expertise. So I am interested in that. Is there any information other than the fact that they're appointed by you, Scott?
That's all the information I know of.
Charter appointment. It's in
Though, is there a charter for them?
If I'm not mistaken, it's even specified they're unpaid.
Right.
So
Roger, is there a chance that I could get a copy of that material?
It's on our website.
Yeah.
It is on your website? Okay, I'll take a look.
ClintonTN.net.
Title 14, Chapter 11.
Say again,
Title
sir?
14, Chapter 11, if I remember correctly.
Chapter 11.
Thank you.
And they're actually doing a workshop this Thursday at 3 o'clock here. And they actually got a historian coming in from the East Tennessee Development District that will speak to them. And that's open to the public, so if you'd like to come.
Absolutely, I would. Thank you very much, Roger, for pointing that out.
Thanks, Craig, appreciate it.
I have just a few more. The next question is in the Historic District Overlay H1. It says that the CHZC shall make a review of the project and thereafter either grant or with conditions or deny a certificate of appropriateness. I did want to ask is what avenue for resolution if agreement can't be reached at that point? Obviously, you can always take something to court. Have you thought about that? Is there an arbitration clause that you would want to use before something would be taken to court? It's just something that I have typically seen before in other development guidelines, and I thought it would be useful here because there are a lot of available alternatives, and so I thought that it was worthwhile to consider that.
I think in the past, it's if attempts through planning commission fails or historic commission fails, then that person can bring their grievance to the council.
To the council is
Yeah.
the appropriate.
Because
avenue.
we give approval or disapproval regardless of, for most of the things that both of those committees do.
No, sir, it goes straight to the courts. Some cases, if it goes to BZA denies it, then it has to go to
Right.
Chancery Court.
It doesn't come through us? Okay, I
It
apologize.
goes to BZA.
Yeah, BZA, it'll go to BZA first, BZA denies it.
Then go to
and then
court.
it goes to Chancery.
Okay.
Historic zoning goes straight to the court system. Okay.
So historic zoning is straight to the court system, and that's the question that I kind of wanted to have answered, is if you really want it to go straight to the court system or if you wanted to have some type of arbitration clause in there in case something needed to be resolved.
That would have to,
Okay, so I
That's
will
in-
review that. I apologize, I didn't really have a chance to review
That's
that
in the
before I
charter.
showed up. In standards for rehabilitation, it says point number 2, the distinguished original qualities or character of a building, structure, or site and its environment shall not be destroyed or modified and destroyed, and it just is, it's very open and shut right there. I believe it would be beneficial to modify that by adding, or modified unless authorized through the Appendix E guidelines. So there may be some cases, again, and maybe this is already taken care of throughout the process, but it's just, in some cases, you may have to destroy something to rebuild it up. It's just a very absolute and closed statement.
I
But
think
thought-
that would probably be handled through BZA or Planning Commission on appeal.
I'm sorry, but BZA is,
Board of Zoning Appeals.
okay, Board of Zoning Appeals, thank you.
And you all meet the second Thursdays?
Second
Thursday?
Monday.
Second Monday
I believe it is.
in this room.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, all those are valid points. It's gonna be, from a protocol standpoint, go to the planning commission and BZA, then it'll work itself up to council.
Okay, sounds good. I just only have a few more comments then.
Well, you started with 2, now you've gone +3.
Oh, no, yeah, maybe I haven't had enough coffee, Scott. It's still early in the afternoon. So again, for example, is it okay if I continue?
Well, if it's the same type of comments you've been having, which are good comments, I would save those and give those and present those to the BZA board and planning commission.
So, but this is being considered to be reissued, is that correct?
Well, it's going to be it's going to be voted on one way or the other, but I don't think anything that you're going to say or have said is going to change the process.
Oh, okay.
But what it will do is they can make adjustments to the ordinance and add or take away from the ordinance in the future.
Okay.
We
So
can
it's-
adjust.
I don't want to cut you short, but
No, I understand.
the process it starts in the lower committees like the planning commission.
Right, I understand.
For those changes.
Okay. Okay, so I guess I'll leave it then at that, and then I'll take any additional comments to the BZA.
Please, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments, really do.
Okay, you're welcome.
But very valid.
Next meeting will be April 8th.
April 8th?
April 8th, and it's at 6 o'clock.
Would anyone else like to speak on ordinance number 639, the zoning ordinance amendments? Third ordinance is ordinance number 640. This is rezoning B4 to R3, and this is on Frank Price Boulevard. And that's the road right behind, or right next to the Walgreens as you're going to the interstate.
Beside Anderson County High School,
Yeah.
behind Walgreens.
Any other comments? Motion to adjourn public hearing.
So moved.
Public hearing is closed. Open the regular agenda. Call to order, please. Roll call.
Councilman Gann.
Here.
Councilman McBride.
Here.
Councilman Harrell. Councilman Stamey.
Here.
Councilman Hatmaker.
Here.
Councilman Farah.
Present.
And Mayor Burton.
Yes. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The prayer this evening will be given by Councilman McBride. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. Mayor, if we could begin, please, with a moment of silence for Alfred Williams, who passed away this week, member of the Clinton 12, and I guess you could say one of the landmarks of the Clinton community.
Our Father, we thank you for this day, and thank you for all your many blessings, and the ability to come and to serve our community, and as well as to serve you. I do pray tonight for Mr. Williams' family as they are suffering the loss. And Father, thank you for what he did in our community and the daily tasks that he carried forth. And I pray that you would just be with his family in these days to come. I pray for this council. I pray for wisdom that only comes from you. And I pray that we would take care of business and do business that is in line with your will. Thank you for the staff, and thank you for those who work for the city each day and for the things they do. I pray for your protection for them each day, and I pray for their families. Be with us now as we continue, and that all we say and do would be glory and honor to your name. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
Thank you, Jim. Do you hear a motion for the review and approval of minutes of the previous meeting dated February 25th, 2019?
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. At this time, will be any visitor or citizen would like to share a grievance or a praise? Yes, sir. Please, and state your name and address, please.
I don't know if you remember me, Mr. Mayor, but Scott, I appreciate you guys supporting the veterans. I've met you a few times at the Veterans Breakfast.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate all the city for doing that. This new playground that we've.
I'm sorry, can you state your name and
I'm
address,
sorry.
please?
Charlie Cardwell, 237 Foster Road, Haskell, Tennessee. So sorry. It's been a while since I spoke, but I worked for years out at DOE complex out at Oak Ridge. And I worked on a lot of the hazardous waste sites out there, the burial grounds and so forth. And I've got a few, I ain't gonna say that it can't be done because I was involved in projects out there that was completed. Some of you guys are old enough to remember back in the 80s whenever we were getting strontium-90, cesium, and tritium into Melton Hill Lake. A lot of contamination. It was determined it was coming from White Oak Creek out there. Well, I was involved in putting in systems that helped clean that up. One of them was 95.8% clean water when it went back out. The other one was 98 point something else percent when it went back out. So it can be done. My concerns are about this project is how close it is to the Clinch River. And if it was to leach into the river system over there. We're dealing with 3 heavy metals, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury. 2 of them are carcinogens, cancer-causing agents. Mercury, it's a little devil by itself. It's the only thing it does, it kills your vital organs, your brain, your nervous system, your kidneys, your digestive tract, and all that. And a lot of people don't realize mercury starts vaporizing at a temperature of 76 degrees. So if that stuff is disturbed and temperatures gets above 76 degrees, it's going to start vaporizing. The 3 ways it gets into your body system is inhalation, absorption, and ingestion. Inhalation, everybody, you breathe it. Ingestion, you eat it. Biggest part of these, I don't think it would ever happen. The only one that I'm basically concerned about is inhalation. If we start disturbing this and it becomes airborne. Right now it should be dry the way it's capped off. It should be completely dry. But if we make any kind of penetrations into that ground, set power poles, make footers, or anything like that, that stuff, unless it is controlled, will become airborne. It's not the particles that you can see floating around in the air that's harmful. Your hairs in your nostrils, your mucus, that will filter it out. It's the microscopic particles that you can't see that's harmful. I'm dealing with asbestosis right now, and that's what's got me because of that reason. It's the particles that you can't see. They're microscopic. I ain't saying it can't be done, but there's safe ways to do all of this. You've got acute and chronic effects. Acute is, and I don't think this would ever happen unless you go over there and that water is completely contaminated with arsenic or mercury or something like that, and you drank the water or you took a spoon and took a big bite of it. That would never happen. The most, and what I'm dealing with right now, is the chronic effect, and it's a small dose over a long period of time, and you have a latency period. It takes to 10 or 15 years for this to ever to hit you. Then it will hit you. Slowly but surely, and it's a slow, painful death. And I don't want to see any of our children, I wouldn't like to see it, and I don't think anybody in the city would want to see our younger children, younger generation, become affected with this. or it happened to them, because I don't want them, I'm 70 years old, my life is way over, half over. I don't plan on living to be 140, there ain't no way. But I figure that I don't want to see our children to have the same health problems that I'm having right now because of it. I've dealt with the heavy metals and all that. I don't know if there's any water sampling being taken that's dispensing into our Clinch River and whatever. And then the only thing else I've got is, I don't know, but most sites were at Oak Ridge, I don't know what it is, the regulation in the private sector is if it hazard material sites, it's supposed to be posted as hazard material sites or whatever, but I was thinking they were per OSHA, that they're supposed to be posted, but I'm not for sure on that. Then, like I said earlier, a lot of the effects is cancer, and it hits your liver. That's what mercury's the worst, actually. The others are carcinogens, other two are carcinogens, but mercury's the worst because it vaporizes so quick, and it gets into your it affects your nervous system, your digestive tract, your lungs, and also it can have effect on newborn babies. All three of these can have effects on newborn babies, especially if they're being nursed by their mothers later on, if the mother gets contaminated. So just to bring it to where.
Charlie, I appreciate it. You know, we've had some discussions with TDEC on that. Of course, that's our EPA for the state.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, you're talking about the poles or, you know, you can't plant, there's trees you can't plant on those.
I'm
on those
sorry.
ar-
I lost my
trees-
hearing
Trees
also.
can't be planted around those areas also.
Well, that's, yeah, it's one thing I didn't cover. There is a life expectancy on those caps. Those caps don't last forever. There's a life expectancy on everything.
But that's what I like about what we're doing from a oversight standpoint.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
I know there's been some oversight over the last 20 or 30 years, but that being in a focal area where there's going to be a lot of focus, there's going to be a lot more oversight.
Yeah.
And those caps are going to be checked a lot more than they have been in the past, I would imagine. As far as the water samples, those have been tested by a private company, and also we're doing that as far as the city, and our preliminary readings are saying they're just as good going in as they were coming
Okay,
out. So
okay.
we're taking precautions, and that, and again, that's 9% of the total park.
Yes.
That's part of that fly ash, and all that's going to be passive area. So the only thing and it's not going to be going over the sites, it's going to be a direct path going to and from different areas of the park. So that area is not going to be disturbed unless somebody brings a shovel and starts digging 2 feet deep.
It's going to be used as a
It's just
right
going
of
to be
way
a
into
walkway.
it.
A walkway like you would, you know, as you well know, the sidewalks and the streets that we have today have fly ash on it.
Okay, I understand.
But I mean, if we didn't feel good about this, then we would have a much greater concern. But everything we've seen, and I guess personally, I'm really relying on TDEC to tell us that it's okay, and they're saying it'll be okay, but there's certain things that we have to do in regards to not disturbing those areas.
Exactly. I would, just a suggestion, I'm not saying what to do or whatever.
Yes, sir, please.
I would always get a second and third opinion, testing opinion. I'd get somebody else another like NIOSH or whoever to test this, not just one. We always got 2 and 3 to make sure that we were correct. And then those caps, what'll happen is rodents will come up from underneath and they'll penetrate that, and then you'll start the seepage into your water system. And the other thing, then I'll shut up, is that if the city assumes responsibility for that ownership of that piece of property, then
It's privately held.
Every who owns it, it's cradle to grave, every who owns that dump site.
Cradle to grave. It means
If you own a hazard material burial site, or any kind of hazard material, and you produced it and put it in there, and if TVA owns it, they owned it from cradle to grave. If somebody else takes owner of it, then they own it from cradle to grave.
Yes, sir.
And then vice versa.
you know, this is going to be a private ownership.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Hi. State your name and address, please.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councilman. I'm Melissa Einwechter of Eagle Bend Drive here in the city. I wanted to revisit the topic of the water tower. There is a new citizen effort underfoot to raise funds via a crowdsourcing mechanism such as GoFundMe, and this begets 2 questions for the council. The first is how much money such a campaign would need to raise for the city to consider purchasing / relocating the water tower? And secondly, whether the city would be amenable to possibly matching funds that were raised by the citizens?
The estimates that we received as far as moving the water tower, even across the street behind Market Street, is right at $1 million. Right at $1 million to move that. And you know what's, and I tried, the big challenge with us, there always seems like a challenge in Clinton with some of these things. But all the water towers, I'd say probably 99% of the water towers you see as you go through different states, you see them on the side of the roads and stuff like that, they have always been publicly held. So the likelihood of those ever moving would be very small. This is unique because it's a privately owned tower. And we still fight that today. It can't stay where it is. The owners don't want it there because, as I respect the fact that it's going to diminish the value and the usage of that property. So they want it, either they want to tear it down and sell that for scrap metal, or somebody can buy it and move it. But I think, I don't want to speak for the council. Y'all can speak up, but I don't think it's going to be. We're being good servant of taxpayer dollars, personally, by spending $1 million to move that, because that's, first of all, it's a lot of money. But I think personally too, I think you lose a little prevalence of the historical prevalence of that being moved and not being at the original site.
Did we not have an engineer that went out and measured it and determined the weight?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to find the report.
But-
Structurally, it came back that the metal was sound.
Right.
With it and everything, that, besides a little bit of rust and everything, that it was sound, but he did give us an estimate on moving it. I was trying to locate it on Dropbox. I was trying to remember when that was. It was 2 summers ago or last summer?
It was
June,
just,
July,
it was
right.
just this past, yeah.
It was that time frame we were meeting in community.
We were meeting in the community center.
Yeah.
Do you know, I mean, the current owner, have they expressed the desire to sell it? And does it have a price tag on it? Have they put a, like, what's
My
the
understanding was
price?
the price tag had come down to about $100,000.
Yeah. I think it had been given to the previous demo person.
In
I
lieu
don't
of
think he
payment?
purchased it. I think it was given to him for some work that had been done, and I think that since probably may not be the case now.
I'm trying to find that too.
I would recommend, if there's if there's that strong of a support in the city and the surrounding areas, to try the GoFund and let's see what the interest is. That's, now you're adding another $100,000 to the $1 million. Now we're at $1.1 million.
Sure.
And if there's a way to keep it, I would certainly look at it, but you get to a point where the cost is just too much. So, but.
And then also, didn't, you would have to have permission, was there not some dialogue at once upon a time that it would be within the easement of TDOT? And would, if it was located back behind, next to the big parking lot,
Maybe in
that,
fall
would
zone
would
or-
TDOT even allow us to move it
No.
there? So, I mean,
And then I think there was a question of CUB.
moving
and-
power lines.
And,
Those are all the major power lines that go north of the county and other counties.
And those costs weren't included in the estimate.
no, and I asked the general manager of CUB about the feasibility of it, because I think it was gonna entail with shutting power down, turning power off, relocating the lines, and and I'm just going off of memory from the CUB board meeting, he was not amenable to that. That wasn't a starter for him, just from a feasibility standpoint, of turning power off. There may be ways to get it done. When there's a will, there's a way, right? So there's always that, so,
I'd recommend reaching out to the owners or the owners' representatives and see what their interest is and see how much they'll work with you.
Okay.
We'll take it from there.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Also might mention, if and when that property is redeveloped, maybe the new developer want to keep it there.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So that's our option too.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. As Freddie would say, you again?
Thank you, Mayor. Rick Meredith, 102 Waterston Way, President of the Anderson County Chamber of Commerce. I just want to call on you guys and say I support the ordinances, the two that are on the food trucks, as well as the rezoning on Market Street, as well as the Board of Directors at the Chamber of Commerce. We support both of those. We look forward to hearing from you on an update of the Magnet Mills project, since some of that legal stuff was expired on Friday. Also, we had the opening of the park inside Clinton. Chamber of Commerce will be passing a resolution supporting that park, as well as going forward with the downtown vision. I think all of this is going forward. We have houses finally being approved, subdivisions, so everything is looking good for Clinton. So thank each one of you for your support and appreciate y'all's service. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. While I have you here and Josh, I'm Anderson here with fellow commissioners, want to thank you all for, you know, we've kind of checked something off our bucket list, both of us have, as far as moving the Glen Alpine Convenience Center.
Yes.
The bids came in much lower than what was anticipated, and the contract's been signed. And when is that supposed to all start happen, and when should it be completed?
I would say it's a weather issue, but it's going to be soon. Budget committee's passed everything, commission passed everything full with Commissioner Anderson's help. 28-year project, hallelujah. It just took
Yeah,
28 years to
fantastic.
get something done, so glad to be a part of that.
Thank you.
We'll move forward.
County
Appreciate it.
Mayor actually signed the contract with the contractor Wednesday. So she
Great.
said they ought to start work probably this week.
Great. Anybody else? Communications from the mayor. I've got a couple of things as far as downtown Market Street. A lot of things going on down there. March event, we had a 7th annual Irish Stroll and Sale. That was the March 15th and 16th. It was kind of cool that night, but I think it was pretty well attended. I think the people the antiquers that I've spoke with were very pleased with their sales for that Friday, I know, and hopefully they had a good Saturday. Just a couple of things for April and May. Bloomsday is Saturday, April 13th. They're going to have food trucks. They're going to have local artisans. They have some downtown festivities. Jim, listen, you'll like this one. Pie eating contest, fashion show, Easter bonnet parade, and a Easter egg hunt. And in May and September, Friday Night Lights, which was very popular last year. Going to have more food trucks, which are fantastic. Again, the local artisans, and the stores will be opening late. All these events are sponsored by the historic Downtown Clinton Merchants Association. Appreciate what all you do down there. Thank you. Committee reports.
Mr. Mayor, before we leave events, let me also plug in this Friday, Arbor Day celebration at South Clinton Elementary School at 1 o'clock. You planting a tree.
What time is that again?
1 o'clock
1 o'clock. Thank you.
this Friday.
City School Board report. Kelly Johnson.
Good evening. It is a great day at Clinton City Schools. We are back after spring break, so all the kids and teachers have come back, and I think we're a little bit better health-wise than we were before spring break. We certainly got hit by the flu and stomach bug right before spring break and had to start spring break a day early because we couldn't find coverage for our classes, but looks like we're on the mend there. Wanted to share a couple of dates with you. Our TCAP testing is just around the corner, or T and Ready testing. We'll be doing our writing assessment on April the 16th, and then the other 4 subjects, ELA, reading, math, ELA, math, science, and social studies, will take place on April the 23rd. And so we look forward to showing what the kids have learned on that test. This week is National Public Schools Week, and so from March the 25th through the 29th, we are celebrating the power of public education and how it serves as the great equalizer for our students across our country. Ironically, as we celebrate that, on Wednesday in the Full Education Committee at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time, they're going to be voting on vouchers. And so the governor has repackaged the vouchers and is calling them education savings accounts. So it comes with a new name and a new package, but it is basically the same thing. And so we are actively campaigning against that because we know the damage that it does to public schools and how it's going to further the divide between our haves and have-nots. And so we are publicly advocating against that, but we look forward to seeing how that plays out in the full education committee on Wednesday. And then I wanted to share just a few upcoming dates because lots of good things are happening across our 3 schools in which I want you all to be aware and anyone who is listening to be aware. Tomorrow, we are going to actually do our kindergarten registration for any 5-year-old student who is going to be 5 years old on or before August the 15th of this year. We're doing that a little bit differently this year. In the past, we've gathered everybody at the community center and we've put children through screening and we've decided to try a little different venue this year to where it's not so overwhelming for our students who are walking in the doors and experiencing school and meeting us for the first time. So we're actually going to do the registration in the individual schools tomorrow night from 4:30 to 6:30. And so parents can come and complete all of the registration, get their kids signed up for kindergarten, and then we'll be doing a separate open house at each school in May where the children can come and take a tour of the school, meet the teachers, and become familiar with the classrooms. Then also on April the 2nd is going to be our annual art show at the Kincaid House. So from 4:30 to 7:30, we will be at the Kincaid House, and you can park at the fairgrounds, and we're going to be providing shuttles over. But if you didn't get a chance to see that last year, that was just a phenomenal. Each Clinton City student will have a piece of artwork displayed under a tent at the Kincaid House. And then we have students doing musical performances in a variety of different things out at the gazebo, and so you can come and just sit on the lawn and enjoy students performing and see some artwork and have some nice refreshments on that night. So many thanks to Melissa Charles for she donates that venue for us to do our art show, and then later on in the week Anderson County Schools will do their art show. And we had to postpone our Dream It Do It competition with 6th grade due to the sickness that we experienced right before spring break. So the 6th graders who are part of our Dream It Do It teams that have created some phenomenal interactive websites based on some industry tours that they have gone on, they will be presenting those interactive websites on April the 11th at 8:30 in the morning in the Clinton Elementary Auditorium. And we do that in partnership with the Anderson County Chamber, and they will be there giving out awards. And then finally, last but not least, on April the 16th is going to be the Education Foundation's Teacher of the Year banquet at First Baptist Church in the Family Life Center. That is going to be at 6:30 in the evening, and on that particular night, we are going to honor 3 of our Teachers of the Year. So at Clinton Elementary School, that's Allison Swanner, our art teacher, Jean Fielden, a 3rd grade teacher at South Clinton Elementary School, and Jill Smithson, a 3rd grade teacher at North Clinton Elementary School. And then we will also be honoring Miss Jenna Sharp, the principal at Clinton Elementary School, as our Principal of the Year. And so Education Foundation is currently accepting table donations and then individual tickets for that as well. So busy times at Clinton City Schools. Any questions for me?
Any questions for Kelly? Any comments, E.T.?
God, y'all were easy this month.
No.
Okay, thank
We're
you.
watching the NCAA tournament. We're wore out.
I know, exactly. Probably a lot more entertaining than my report.
No, thank you. Thanks, Kelly. Scott, do you have anything? No. Thank you. Clinton Regional Planning Commission report, Councilman Gann.
The Clinton Regional Planning Commission met on March the 4th. New business applicant Alex McGrew, Dwan Brewer, requesting rezoning from B1H1 to B1 for properties located at 351, 353, 355 North Cullum Street. And this was 2 purposes, really. Their statement was they were not on Market Street, and so therefore they really didn't want to be bound by whatever historical guidelines that might be imposed upon them in the future. Because I think one's an engineering firm and such, and he said, I'd like to have the freedom to build what I want to. And so he was requesting, and as a part of the conversation, also it was brought up that on the other side of Market Street, the Clinton Baptist Association, the restaurant there, and our historic railroad depot, none of them are in the historical downtown overlay. So we're historical on one side, but not on the other side. And so based upon that, and on the advice of our consulting Mr. Barrett, after reviewing the municipal code, the Planning Commission can make recommendations to the Historic Zoning Commission for review and recommendations to City Council for boundary changes. And so we forwarded that to the Historical Commission for their consideration, because we've got a discrepancy there on either side of Market Street. And that's one of the concerns that we have, in addition to the fact that they want to be removed from the historical district.
So I've got a question. So who makes the determination of that?
I would say they would make a recommendation. Would that come to council, or would that come to?
No, like, I mean. does
Why
it have to-
wasn't-
Does it have to go to the historic?
That's where we forwarded it to.
Why,
Because,
I'm just asking why, because I thought planning commission was the,
well,
are you guys not the,
Well,
for
the
lack
bu-
of a better term, are you all not the chief counsel in that?
well, we did because our advisor, Plan Commission makes recommendations for the review and recommendation to city council.
That's per ordinance, they have the review.
But it has to go back to the historic planning commission?
Yes, they have the review authority, and then it goes back to planning commission.
So if historic planning commission says no, what happens?
They forward it to planning commission with a no recommendation.
And then what's planning commission do then?
They act on it.
They either drop it or bring it to council?
Yes.
I'm not so much concerned on the back of, is that Cullum Street? And the Apple Blossom, but it doesn't make any sense to me why the depot and the Clinton Baptist Association would be part of that.
Yeah, we.
I mean, that
I
should be
thought
a-
the depot was the reason that this was all started, because wasn't they gonna come to town and take the depot away or
we
do
were gonna-
something? And,
We were going to relocate, they were going to be relocated,
Yeah.
and the city was
But years
initially
ago,
thinking about,
That was-
that's for our time,
like
but
the
Because that was a concern when we discussed this. You mean our railroad depot is not even in our historical district?
and that was the reason for establishing the historic district, was it not?
I couldn't tell you that. That was before my time.
It was before mine too, but I thought that, I was told that.
that, yeah, I think that, I'm pretty confident in saying that that was the plan. It just didn't happen, but can we maybe make even a motion to planning commission or historical commission, including all occupants or all buildings on Market Street? I'm not talking about the two satellite roads, if you will, to be included in the historic zoning, I guess, for lack of a better word.
You would include the
I would
Baptist
include- yeah.
Association, the depot,
Yeah.
and a church there, I believe.
Well, I wouldn't, I mean, church is
church
up
is-
for debate. I'm just saying, those
Yeah.
two should be no-brainers. They should be included in that.
They're not
It's
currently
one
in it.
continuous,
No, they're not, because I asked Bill earlier and looked at the map, it's not.
No,
can you just pass that along to your committee members? And I know David's in the audience too, that, unless somebody has an issue with that, I think those two buildings need to be in that distinctive area.
But by charter, wouldn't that have to come from the historical commission?
Yeah. And we can talk to the people in the historic too, but.
They need to deal with it and forward
Yeah.
it to us.
This historic, I'm gonna talk about it a little bit later, but this whole thing's confusing to me. Seems like it just, planning commission refers to them, they refer it back. I mean, it's like, who's, for lack of a better term, who's the boss? It's just very cumbersome, I guess. That's the word. I've been trying to think of the word. That's a
Well,
big
the
word.
historic
That's
is-
about the best lawyer
his-
word I can come up with, Zach.
Well,
Cumbersome. It's very
he's
cumbersome.
got a much bigger word he
You
can
got
use.
another word you can put in there?
That's a good one.
I
Thank you.
think the historic is more cosmetic.
Yes.
But
The
the
colors,
going
the
back and
fascias.
forth is just very cumbersome.
Well, I think
I'll say it
if
again.
you had that under one group's responsibility, that's a lot responsibility between the
But
two.
like in this case, this has nothing to do with aesthetics.
Yeah, but his is just, this is
This
just codes.
This has to do with, but this has to do with zoning, so why does it even have to go back to, I mean, I understand the charter, but why does it doesn't have anything to do with cosmetics?
The historic zoning commission, you just added another review layer for the historic zone. All those guidelines were originally adopted in accordance with state statute, so it's nothing that's been done by any council
Okay.
previous, that's state statute.
But going back to my thing, and I'm gonna hush and go on. Why did I'm pointing to Larry, because he's planning commission, why did they not act upon this? Why did they send it back to historic, the three parties, 351, 355, or whatever, they did no longer want to be a part of that, they want to be basically rezoned. So why do we have to go back to the Historic Planning Commission to do that?
I think because of the discrepancy was what we were concerned about. If we're gonna enforce it on one side, are we not gonna enforce it on the other side, or are we gonna not enforce it anywhere? And we were looking for guidance there.
Section 141103, subsection 3, in the historic zoning ordinance. To recommend to the planning commission the establishment of historic zones and to review the recommendations of planning commission or any other group or person for the establishment or change in the boundaries of any historic zone.
Okay, that answers the question.
So the reason why those two buildings were not included, it was just an oversight.
I would have to go back and review the minutes of that creation. I recall for some strange reason, there was a reason that they were not included, but I would have to go back and look at the
Okay.
minutes.
If you get a chance, that'd be interesting to find out. Anything else for Larry?
Not out of Board of Zoning Appeals. That's all out of that one. I mean, excuse me, out of Planning Commission. The BZA applicant Thomas Hicks Construction requesting a side setback variance to 0 feet for property located at Frank Price Boulevard. And again, after discussion with Mr. Barrett and looking at the property, this is that new development, it was decided that we're probably better off looking at a lot size variance for a planned unit development, which this really is, instead of a side setback that he had requested. Also, there was some discussion about drainage with one of the other residents in the area, so there's a number of things there that are going to be looked at. But we did pass the lot size variance under the planned utility development guidelines for that development.
When is that supposed to start, did they say?
We haven't gotten, I don't think, final plat review on it yet, so it's still.
Okay. Any questions for Larry? Thanks, Larry. Clinton Utilities Board report, Councilman Farah.
Clinton Utility Board met this month, and we looked at two big issues, I think, that I'll speak upon. Residential developers' policies and procedures. Those were voted upon, and they passed. I'd note that each motion made passed, best to my recollection, unanimously. So I'm sure that there will be more to come as far as those policies get implemented, and there may be some questions about the implementation of the policy. So as a board, we'll follow that closely. I think, again, there continues to be a question about what, in my mind, and this is just as a board member of the Clinton Utility Board, CUB's instructed to enlarge and extend the system per the code or the charter, if I'm not mistaken. And so how do you define that? And it's also within an economically feasible manner, right? In a business-like manner, we are to extend and enlarge the system. So I think there's been some tension between what we do for industrial customers, what we do for individual residential customers, and then what we do for residential development and/or commercial development as it pertains to maybe incentivizing these individuals to come to our town and build new rooftops. And so there is a healthy balance in there somewhere to find. And I think that's what the board and what I was doing for maybe a year ago, getting some of this discussion started. Both of those, well, and it goes all the way back to December, with 2 workshops, 3 board meetings, robust participation from all sectors and stakeholders in this town. And so I am confident, and I feel that there is a certain amount of momentum that's happening for us and for our city. And I also recognize that not everybody's going to agree with everything we do, and that's okay. But what we're trying to do is add some rooftops, which will benefit places like, you know, Charles Seaver Boulevard, if you own a business on Charles Seaver, or if you own a business at Main Street or Market Street. talking to residential developers and friends in Knoxville, asking how that downtown was recreated for them, and it had to do with rooftops. It had to do with rooftops and people moving to downtown. And, other places other than Market Square benefited from that. Gay Street benefited from what was going on, and Lower Gay Street, and so on and so forth. So, another thing, too, is if we've gone too far, if what we're proposing, and this is my thoughts, if we've extended it too far to one direction, we can always adjust the policies to get us back in a place where we need to be. But point 2 had to do with salaries, salary structures that were currently already in place, and so there was great consternation about what the chairman, Mr. Price, was seeking clarification upon. However, our general manager already has all the salary structures in place, and everybody's very pleased with what we have there. So I think CUB continues to do great work, and I know that from a water and sewer issue, they've really been stretched these past 2 months with the water and the rain. So, any questions?
Any questions for Zach?
Just want to say too, as CUB board member, how proud I am of our management, and also more importantly, and I said this to them, I want to say this to the citizens here, we have people that work in our utility board that are great, wonderful, hardworking, salt-of-the-earth people, and we all owe them a great debt and gratitude. Now, they get paid for that work, and that's good, but they work long hours, and they work around the clock, and particularly when you have situations like this. Now, I have a friend down on Riverside that had an issue, and I think some of that got addressed specifically, but to the men and women that work for CUB, I want to say thank you from City Council.
I agree, 100%. One thing, I attended that meeting, and I think there was a lot of progress made from the development side. I think there were some concessions made to make us more competitive, and I think I've already started hearing some positive feedback from those developers to wanting to invest, not in Clinton, but also in the surrounding area of Clinton. So I think it's very, very promising. As mayor, of course, I make the appointments. I really encourage both sides are doing a great job, by the way, but both sides to increase their communication to one another, make sure there's no surprises or no ambushes, and just have that open dialogue and feel comfortable doing that. My goal with CUB, just like any board we have, is to bring balance to the board and make sure that that balance is in place. And I think we're certainly getting there for that, specifically with CUB.
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment there. I mean, I agree with you with CUB, and I know we rag on the school system a lot too, but I mean, we also, our city staff and our city guys, I mean, the guys, firefighters and police and public works, I mean, they're all rolled in together. I guess the city of Clinton is more than utility, it's more than public works, it's more than fire, it's more than police, recreation, and schools. But all together, I think they all do a good job. So I just don't want
Amen.
one party to feel like we haven't. But when you go up and down the streets and there's not grass growing in between the sidewalks, and there's brush pickup and all that done routinely, that's a lot too.
Yeah. That's the problem, when you start naming people, you always forget somebody.
You all,
doing a
but
good job.
those are the three entities that represent us and represent us well as the city of Clinton.
Thank you. Anything else? Larry, do you have anything under other reports?
No.
Okay. General Government Report, Mr. Houck.
Thank you, Mayor. As we discussed last month, a portion of the Eagle Bend Road adjacent to the Clinch River has shifted and settled and is currently not safe for travel. We have retained Cannon & Cannon Incorporated for emergency engineering services to determine the exact extent of the repairs necessary. After investigating, it has been determined that the roadway needs to be shifted slightly northward and away from the riverbank to prevent further erosion and damage. We feel that we can accomplish most of this work with the public works staff and various equipment rental and utilize our existing contract with Rogers Group. We are estimating a cost of $34,000 for engineering services and approximately $100,000 to $125,000 for construction. We request authorization of an expenditure not to exceed $159,000 for the project. This will come out of the undesignated fund balance.
Hear a motion for approval?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Keep this in mind, we're doing, like you said, a lot of things
Most of
inside
it.
to save money, but, and we are using our fund balance to pay for this, so we've saved for these type of situations. But more importantly, we've continuously, over the years, have put a Band-Aid over this issue, and now we're looking at doing a permanent fix.
Right.
So
This
that's
will
a- that's a
be
good
definitely a
thing.
permanent fix, moving it anywhere from 25 to probably 35 feet up off the river. It's been worked on several times, and so this is definitely a better fix. Approximately 150 feet of roadway that will be moving.
I know it depends on the weather, but what's the estimated time for completion on this? A month, 6 weeks?
We did some core sampling, a few spots, they found rock 8 feet down, I think, and a few spots about 15, so it really depends. Dwayne's been mobilizing starting last week on getting the equipment lined up, so probably we'll start here the next week, I would say, and then, once again, how quick we can get Rogers Group in here. I think he's already talked to them. I think they will be in here next week and do Lakefront Park that we had scheduled since last fall, so hopefully it won't take that long, but we've kind of told them this is an emergency. And the other news is on this, Governor Lee filed today for our emergencies monies, hopefully so we can get this reimbursed from the federal government. So we'll keep up
Right.
with all the expenditures, and this will be an allowable cost that we think under that program through FEMA.
Right. Any further discussion?
Jeremy can answer this. Most of the homeowners can get in and out.
Oh, yeah.
Halfway.
Oh, yeah.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor. Finance, I'll defer to Gail.
You got your sales tax report. We were up again this month, a little over 11%. For the year, we're up a little over 5%. We're right in line with the county this year. We're looking at, if we stay at that 5% range, you're looking at about $177,000 increase. So that would actually pay for our road project there, so. Expenditures, we are within our budget through the year, and will probably remain that way. We've got some more capital projects we're going to do, but we're looking good on that. Our revenues in general are looking good except for our property tax. And we are a little bit down this year on our collection, but sometimes that's just a matter of timing. We don't collect it this year, we normally collect it the next year, but we are down a little bit on it. But our other revenues are actually up a little bit this year. So even with our capital projects, if you notice, we're still $35,000 to the good, and that's good considering the capital projects we've done.
Have you unleashed Jeannie yet on
Not
the
yet.
property tax?
She stays unleashed on property tax.
Any questions for Gail?
A few months ago, we talked about delinquent property tax, and Mr. Cry was going to do that. What's the status on that?
Well, I don't know. We'll have to check on it.
I mean, we
I
talked
know
about
that-
that's a tedious process, there
It
got to be
is.
notices sent out, things like that. And then we even talked about the fact that the amount of tax that's delinquent is not a substantial amount of tax, but yet it's the precedent that we're setting that if you don't pay your taxes, we're going to come get you, or we want your tax money, and so it may even be a wash. But there's been sufficient time with that. Has that been turned over to Mr. Cry's office? And-
Yeah, he has them, and I think some notices were sent out, and what our thought process was is that sometimes those notices alone,
Yes.
because really what we're looking for is the real property, the personal property, there's no way to collect it anyway. So really what we were looking for is some of the real property, and there wasn't, I don't know, maybe there wasn't many of those. We'll check on those and see, so we were kind of hoping just that first step would maybe remedy
Right.
that, and we'll look at that
Can
and
you
see.
maybe report back to us next month what that
Sure.
is and where that's at? And if it's not been done and it should have been done, why wasn't it done? And
We'll see what
those
we
type
find out.
questions?
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you, Gail. Spring cleanup at Public Works Department will be Monday, April the 1st. For guidelines, you can either go to our website at clinton10.net or call the Public Works Department at 457-6495. That's all I have, Mayor.
Would you like to give an update on Magna Mills?
Really, the only thing we have on it is, we discussed last meeting, they had started, I guess you want to call them soft demolition, stripping out the building a couple weeks ago, but as of this past week, they started demolition on the outside walls of the building. Jason Stokes, our codes enforcement, went over today and talked with them. It kind of slowed down a little bit last week, but the problem that he explained to Jason today, that they brought a new piece of equipment in last week. Due to that being a larger piece of equipment, the insurance company that the contractor had wouldn't cover it, so he had to go get new insurance. He put that in place Friday, and they worked about 10 hours Saturday, and they worked quite a bit today, and Jason took some pretty significant pictures today. Quite a bit of concrete and brick went down today.
Oh, okay.
And Jason's will go over probably every 3 to 4 days and keep a diary and take pictures.
Good. Does it look like there's still a lot of stuff inside as far as metal?
He went inside, and about all the conduit, metal, rebar, been quite a bit of rebar in the metal, in the concrete that's came out.
Roger, can we stay up to date on those photos?
Yes.
Can we get them?
Yeah, he's providing me a memo about every 3 or 4 days. I can just have him sort of emailing them to me so I can send them to y'all.
Sort of, my thoughts on that, Mayor, if I may, is, you know, I don't want him tear this down one brick at a time and you know, and therefore think he's in accordance with, you know, the administrative hearing officer's order. I think there's a certain degree, and I'll say bad faith, you know, on their part, waiting this long. And there was zero demolition until the day after our last meeting, when they started throwing stuff out the window.
I think you hurt his feelings.
Maybe did. So, you know, I think if they're not making significant progress or substantial progress, I think the steps that we would take then would be, I mean, I think we make a motion to bring them back before the chancellor and look at taking legal action for a breach of basically a breach of the order. You're in violation of order. You're in contempt of this administrative hearing officer because you are acting in bad faith with what was directed for you to do. I'm not saying that's where we are today, and you can speak to that.
One avenue that we've talked about, staff, and kind of talked with our attorney about this is, you know, of course, we were ready to do this, so they started demolition. And we talked 2 conference calls last week, and of course, the time frame will be the matter. If they stop demolition for a matter of time, our thought process is we will go in and condemn the property and safeguard it and put up, and Jason, Code Enforcement, have the signs made up. We'll condemn it and post no trespassing, and once we do that, they're not allowed back on property. If they do, then our police department has the right to remove them.
Have
And
we
once do
determined what that is, though? Is that 3 days, 5 days, 7 days? What-
Albert probably says probably 10 days was a conversation we had the other day.
Is that concrete? I mean, is there a law that
No.
says 10 days?
Not really. Not
I
not
mean,
the conversation we had with him.
Can our staff, can you guys just say 5 days? Or, I mean, my point is, we've given them the benefit
Yeah.
of the doubt so many times.
And that's why, and that's the purpose of us trying to keep pictures in a diary, him going over, and this is what we did last time, to just make sure they
But I
continue
mean,
to work.
I think that timeframe doesn't need to be 10 days personally. I mean,
I think it ought to be 5.
yeah, I go 3.
Yeah.
I mean, but give them a long weekend or something. But my point is, we've given them every bit, we've done everything we can. And so, I mean, I'd like to see you, as leader of the pack, tell the staff it's gonna be 3 days or 5 days, and if there's 5 days of no movement, no activity, then we go get those signs and
Well-
we secure that
Do we
property.
have to wait to our next meeting to approve that, or can we proactively? No, well, set it you know, in I- 5 days?
That we've given,
You
I think
go.
we've given.
Hey, guys, we got, I mean, if we're paying for legal counsel, and that's not what legal counsel's telling us, it'd be kind of hard to go against what they're saying.
We've been doing legal counsel for 4 years and look what's
I
happened.
mean,
Well, we've got every building down except for one.
Yeah, and it's,
It's better than the last 30 years.
well, I agree, but
Yeah.
I'm not
Well, I
content.
know,
Well, I
but
mean,
that's just the legal
that's
process.
true. That's true, but at the same time, legal counsel represents our interests. And, we can say, it is our belief and our position as a party that it should be 3 to 5 days. Now, someone in a black robe across the street may say, that's not agreeable. But I don't know, unless there is a statute, a law, or a case holding that exists that says 10-day is the standard. I think what happens is sometimes our council doesn't understand the level of bad faith that we've been dealing with for the past 30 years. And so what he may think is reasonable in light of the circumstances, he doesn't fully grasp or comprehend just how, I think, fed up.
Well, he thinks
We
the other
are.
party we're dealing with is reasonable,
Correct.
so therefore he wants to be reasonable. And
And I
so
don't think we're
I
dealing
don't
with
think the
reasonable
other,
people.
I don't think the other party's reasonable. So I'm tired of being reasonable. I want to be just as unreasonable as they are. So,
Within the confines of the
boundaries,
law.
legal, yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
okay.
So, I mean, do we need to make a motion direct? Okay.
I don't think so. I think
But I think you know kind of what we're saying. I think personally, 10 days is a little lenient. I'll go with that.
Any other questions for Roger?
Mr. Hacker, do we supervise the demolition itself or at stages? Do we supervise the cleanup? Once he claims he's done, does he clean the whole site up, or do we have no say-so in that?
we know, I mean, it's private property, so besides just going over and getting status reports, I mean, I guess when it's all said and done, and finished, yeah, we'll do a final inspection to
Sure.
make sure it meets the
Sure.
slum ordinance requirements.
Anyone else? Anything else, Roger? Thank you. Under ordinances and resolutions, second final reading of ordinances. First up is ordinance number 635, the mobile food truck vending. Hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Gann?
Yes.
Councilman McBride?
Yes.
Councilman Harrell?
Yes.
Councilman Stamey?
Yes.
Councilman Hatmaker?
Yes.
Councilman Farron?
Yes.
Mayor Burton?
Yes. Ordinance number 635 passes on second and final reading. Ordinance number 639, the zoning ordinance amendments. Hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'm concerned about some of this, and I mean, I know that my questions have been answered somewhat, but I still am concerned about the relationship between the Clinton Historic Zoning Commission and city staff. And can somebody educate me on that? Let me just give an example. It's my understanding that if in this H1 district, there is deemed, if somebody wants to change out windows in one of these buildings, or somebody wants to paint something, or put an awning up, that has to be approved by the Clinton Historic Zoning Commission. Is that a true statement?
No, sir, not exactly.
Okay,
There are certain issues and certain improvements that can be done that the building official can approve and has the authority to do so. The rule of thumb and the guideline is that if it's anything that would require planning commission approval or site plan approval or new construction, then it has to go through the historic zoning commission process. The building official is the liaison and has the authority to make the decision whether the building official approves it or it goes to historic zoning. And that has been in place since day one. There's nothing new in the
but like if I
design.
read here, like for instance, painting. Somebody in this H1 wants to paint their building.
Building official can approve that.
Okay.
But at the same time, that official that's approving that knows what colors are to be approved.
In accordance with the design review guidelines.
Yes. Which is
And-
approved by this, with the historic
is the-
committee approved those?
The Clinton Historic.
Who
Zoning
picked the
District.
colors? Just.
The Historic Zoning Commission picked those early in their process.
So they're just executing what the historic zoning's already approved.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Where would someone appeal the historic zoning commission?
Court system.
And that's written and determined by the TCA, not by anything?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the other piece of this has to do with residences, right? Is that,
Yeah,
is
yes.
that,
One of the specifics.
explain to me that, what that exactly, what is that? What's the change? I know we've talked about it, it's been a month or two, but what is this changing in regards to residences?
It allows ground floor, single residences. If we had if it was a PUD, they could do it under the existing guidelines. For new construction, only new construction. This does allow single-family dwellings
In the H1 district?
in the H1 district.
Now, how far does the H1 district run on Main Street?
Just to the end up there, doesn't it?
Bounded by Main Street, Commerce Street, Freddie Fagan Way, and parallel to the back line of those buildings, and the railroad up to Cullum Street.
And it is new construction.
So existing construction that's there, if somebody wanted to live on the ground level of one of those buildings, that's not
Can
permitted?
do it.
No. Is not.
Is there any property down there that's not, there's just that one parcel, right?
Well, you got the old taxi stand there, it's cleared property.
Is
That could
that's
be
beside
one.
the barber shop?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thought process is the overlay of this could be expanded later by the planning commission.
The overlay of what, the H1 district?
H1 district.
You could expand the district?
Yes.
That could include more of downtown, maybe Bill's property, maybe.
I always thought it went down to Broad.
I looked at that, yeah.
This is the toehold.
It's the what?
It's the toehold with perhaps expansion at a later date.
Interesting.
It's not a lawyer term.
No, that's 37, that's a 37-year veteran of the educational process.
I still win the award on lawyer term today.
So does this allow someone to opt out of the H1? Or are we gonna have to rewrite it from what?
If they want to opt out, I would say they'll have to go through the process of opting out,
Just like these Cullums.
just like the Cullum Street.
I think it'd be hard to opt out, though. I mean, if you're down the core of Market Street, and you're in
But
the
if
middle
you're,
of that.
but if you're gonna grow it,
Yeah. Yeah. But as it stands now, what's in the H1, with the exception of what we talked about earlier, I think that kind of defeats the purpose of having the H1. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Gann?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryant?
no.
Councilman Harrell?
Yes.
Councilman Stamey?
Yes.
Councilman Hatmaker?
Yes.
Councilman Farrell?
Yes.
Mayor Burton?
Yes. Ordinance number 639 passes on second and final reading. Under ordinance number 640, this is rezoning of B4 to R3, Frank Price Boulevard. Do you hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Gann?
Yes.
Councilman Bryant?
Yes.
Councilman Harrell?
Yes.
Councilman Stamey?
Yes.
Councilman Hatmaker?
Yes.
Councilman Farrell?
Yes.
Mayor Burton?
Yes. Ordinance number 640 passes on second and final reading. Is there any old business before us? New business, we have someone here from the Clinton Public Library like to speak? The strategic plan from 2019 to 2029.
Absolutely.
That's
I
a
even
long
have-
plan.
It is. I even have some documentation for you guys. Bring that right up. Brought hard copies of the plan itself, as well, you're very welcome, as well Tennessee Standards for Public Libraries, new edition, which just got edited last year, which is of course one of the documents that we pulled this from. I need you to, apparently I'm over distributing.
Thank you.
Have I given someone else a second copy? If you'll steal up his, that would be great. Okay, so mostly I'm here to answer questions about this 10-year plan and what it entails for us going forward, and of course, how it aligns with what we're doing now. You guys have any questions for me?
Did you, was this online for us, or is this the first time we've seen it?
It's in our
Okay.
packet.
Yep,
Okay.
should be in your
I missed
packet. The 10-year plan is, I brought the Tennessee Standards as an additional backup document because I thought you guys probably didn't have the newest version.
Okay. Any questions or thoughts or comments on this?
Our role in this is that we furnish the building, the maintenance, and I think, what, 10,000?
It's 80,000.
80.
It's 80,400.
We have partnered on some capital projects before. We did we fully funded the roof 12, 14 years ago, but then we've partnered on some heat and air units.
Yes, you guys paid for the unit, and then we paid for the installation on the units.
It's kind of
And
backwards. Usually we do that the other way, but this was a very tedious install on these units where they were located, where they were placed when the building was built. So it was a little more than we could do to install them, so we kind of did that reverse. Usually we would install them and let them pay for them, but we did that one in reverse a couple years ago, maybe, last
that was
year.
2 years ago, and then we did, the library, we funded out of our own budget an upgrade to LED lighting about 4 years ago. And those two projects have saved us thousands and thousands of dollars in energy costs.
Then, of course, we replaced the handicap walkway.
Yeah, we replaced the roof.
Yeah, so we've
Basically.
kind of partnered, as we've done with the schools, on a lot of the projects for the facility.
When you're looking at expanding the parking area, where
Yep.
are you looking at?
I had someone out to come and look at what we have available, and the idea was to go down the front of the building. Currently, our parking lot is actually smaller than the parking lot for Bryceville Library, and we do at least 4 times the business every year that they have.
How many more parking spaces are you hoping to gain?
Oh, goodness. 15? I believe that they said that they could get us somewhere between 12 and 20.
Well, I was asking that, maybe from a cost standpoint, when we get to that, I don't
To
know,
that
you're
part.
kind of far away, but maybe using some of those parking spots on that side of the community center parking lot and have those designated for library.
Well, they
Because you have a
usually
walk,
have.
but are they signed? They have signing for that? Maybe we can do something like that just to help even in the short term, maybe designate, 4 or 5 just for the library.
Sure,
But
we
you
have,
can-
a lot of our patrons already use the lot
Yeah,
on
but
the
it's
other
more
side. We don't have
designated.
enough.
Yeah, it's more designated.
Yeah.
That, we have a lot of people that park over there that
Oh, yes.
sometimes
We-
shouldn't.
We
so-
have people who use our lot when they
Yeah.
perhaps shouldn't be.
Sure, sure.
Have you considered any, like, outdoors seating?
Outdoor seating, we actually we have some park benches
Mm-hmm.
out front. There have been some vandalism issues. So some of those have been taken away. We've still got one park bench left out underneath the pine trees, and we've got another partial bench just across the bridge as you come onto our property. I'd love to have more, but we also have to be able to not have it vandalized.
Kids like to jump on them.
Yeah. We have some teenagers who like to make
Have
them
you-
into U shapes.
Have you done any cost projections on this plan?
Not completely out to the 2029 bit. The early bits, we've already accomplished about 3/4 of this year's goals already, the 1-year goals. We've already accomplished about 3/4 of those, but I haven't gone out further. I know that a new building is going to be significant, but I can also tell you that we are a third of the size we should be.
And what other groups contribute to this
The
besides?
county contributes a sizable bit of our funding. They contribute about 3 times what you guys do. And the,
But we provide the building.
yes, but I'm talking.
Just want to make sure that we're
Yes, yeah, I'm talking in the annual
That was
funding.
for Mr. Meredith back there.
Yeah. I'm talking in the annual funding bit. But, and then, of course, if you're talking collections, we also get collection funding from the state as well, as the monies that we get from the city and the county.
Anything else? Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Very welcome, thank you.
Hollingsworth Park, review and proposed development. Mr. Wallace. You know, when I was little, they used to comment the worst thing that would ever happen is somebody ring the doorbell and they say, "Hello, this is Mike Wallace."
That's true.
But that was with, 60 Minutes, yeah. It's different Mike Wallace.
Well, thank you to everyone that, Mike Wallace, Executive Director of the Hollingsworth Foundation here in Clinton. Thank you to everyone that came out Saturday for our community event. For those that weren't there, we had a great day. We only estimated between 100 and 200 people, just from what we had seen from past events here. And we ended up, the best we could count, 625 people attended. The site was pretty alive from 10:45 to about 2:30. We only slated from 11 to 2. We had food trucks there. We had some bounce houses for the kids. We basically just opened up the site so people could come out and just explore and look around. Gave 3 separate guided tours throughout the property that went back up deep into the site where people could better view the river and the meadow from a distance. And it was very exciting. Each guided walk that I took people on, there was 30 to 40 people in each one. So there was a lot of excitement throughout the day. So we're very proud of what happened on Saturday. There was food trucks there, barbecue. We gave out 490 sandwiches, and that's just with me and Larry and Roger just eating one of that 490. So it worked out pretty well. 180 hot dogs were distributed to the kids. They had cookies and refreshments there. So again, we were very proud of that, and thank you to the city for their help in helping us get that off the ground. Does anyone on council or mayor have any questions for me about the community day on Saturday?
What kind of comments do you get, good and bad?
Personally, I didn't hear any negative comments. I was out leading hikes most of the day, but everyone I talked to was very positive. I didn't receive any questions about the landfill area. We did have Port Urbanism, our landscape architects, there, 2 on site underneath the tent that were answering questions. Also, Dr. George Hyfanis was there from QE2. We'll bring him up in just a moment to give a brief presentation. But it was very positive. I had people asking me how they can contribute to build trails, how they can volunteer at Aspire at the park site. And so we had people from Knoxville, Claxton, Powell, Clinton, which obviously we want people from Clinton, Oak Ridge, and we had some people from outside of those areas, I guess people that were just driving through that came and saw the flags and pulled in. So the foundation was very proud of what happened on Saturday. So.
Great. Any other questions for Mike?
What committees do we have here in town that we could be a little bit more help, I guess, to you and Hollingsworth companies? Recreation Department. I don't know much about the Port Authority. Hadn't met in a long time. So
Yes.
how can committees like that just help?
Well, right now, we're still under the schematic design of the park to see what amenities and venues that we can put in the park. And so that's a question that we'll have to flesh out. We're always welcome of the city's help, in accordance with working with TVA and TDEC and other local, government agencies. There'll be times when we'll need some assistance with those. And we thank you for the help that you've given so far.
Sure.
And the help that you will continue to give us. So.
Sure. Okay.
Anyone else? Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. I'll bring up Dr. George Hyphaneses with QE2 Engineering, president there, and he'll have a brief presentation that we'll put up and answer questions.
Great, thank you.
If I may approach, I'll give you copies of the presentation.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll get the presentation up there on the screen for you. Thank you for having me. I would like to start out by saying I really appreciate the comments that the gentleman made that first spoke about his concerns on the park. I was there on Saturday, and it really was a great Saturday. I had some questions and some comments on the effect of the landfill, what that might have on the park, and I'll kind of go through that in this presentation. Soon. There we go. Thank you. All right. Just for those of you that weren't there, I just thought I'd put this slide on that shows where the location is along 25. But let's go to the next slide, please. All right. So this is what the property currently looks like, and it's only a small piece, a small part of the property. I put these pictures on there to demonstrate one thing in particular, and that is this site was used as an ash landfill. Actually, it's called a structural ash landfill, and this is the cap on top of that. I do a lot of work with landfills, designing and helping people fix problems with landfills. This cap is probably one of the better ones that I've run across. So it's in very good shape. The gentleman said that, yes, caps need to be maintained. This one has been well maintained. Now, if we go to the next slide, this is not the total park. This is just part that I've been interested in working on. And that is in the area of where the ash landfill currently exists, we're just going to put a meadow. We're not going to penetrate the cap. I showed you that cap. We're not going to dig in it. We're not going to penetrate it. And we've worked with the design team to try and keep any kind of building off of that cap. So there's a large piece of property. We're only concerned about this small area where the ash is located. Next slide. I put this up just to show you that this wasn't just a willy-nilly landfill. It was one that was approved, the design was approved by TDEC. It was built according to their standards, and probably most importantly, it was properly closed, and that closure was approved by TDEC. So I want to point all of that out. We are not going to mess with the cap. That's a real technical way to say that. We're not going to mess with the cap. This engineering drawing, though, comes in kind of handy for us. If we go to the next slide, it shows us that we have a storm drain that runs underneath the landfill. That storm drain originates on 25, or beside 25. It runs down and under the landfill and daylights at a small pond, which is on the other side. I have had the opportunity to meet with TDEC on a couple of occasions, and the one thing that they really wanted us to check to make sure that there were no problems with this landfill was to look at water quality that was going into that pipe from 25, so it's catching runoff from 25, running under the landfill, or through the landfill, I should say, and coming out. Was it picking up any contamination? Now, I'll jump to a slide ahead. It didn't pick up any contamination. So from that perspective, it was good. They also wanted us to kind of look at the structural integrity of that pipe. And the next day after I told the folks at the Hollingsworth Foundation that TDEC was interested in it, they had that pipe surveyed. So they ran a camera all the way down, and the structural integrity of that was really good. Okay, so this is a cross-section that shows the cap. On our cap, we have at least 2 feet of soil mixed with clay, and on the bottom, we have 3 feet of clay. So we've got this landfill encapsulated. As development proceeds, we're not going to be puncturing that cap. We're not even going to be putting on trees. We don't want the roots getting down into the cap and penetrating them. Okay, on the next. All right, this is the path of the storm drain. That's interesting to engineers. I'm not sure it's interesting to everybody. Okay, so here's the results of our water quality data. Now, I believe the city has somebody under contract to actually take samples, stormwater samples. We thought we'd go ahead and do it before they got there. So there will be a check on the data that we're presenting here to you today. So we found very minor hits of arsenic and barium. If you can look at the table. The outlet water quality was the same as the inlet water quality. And these results were at drinking or below drinking water standards. I wouldn't recommend that you drink it, but I guess you could. These are very good data. Okay, on the next slide. One of the things that I think people might be concerned about was what's in the soil. You know, is there ash that's mixed in with the soil? We've seen that at some other sites, so we thought we'd better go ahead and sample the soil. And as it turns out, the soil quality data indicate that there's no ash in that layer. And in fact, we're about in the middle of what we find naturally occurring in local soils.
So is this the 2-foot?
Excuse me?
Soil that sits on top of the clay? Is that what you were testing?
Yeah, it's the 2-foot layer on top.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and then on the next slide. So, just to be careful, the plans are not to disturb the cap. However, if for some reason some ash happened to get out of the footprint, if we do run into any ash, we'll handle it appropriately. You know, the workers will put on the masks. From what I've seen about this ash, since it's been compacted, it's almost like concrete. It is so tight that water can't trickle down through it, can't penetrate. And if it's dug up, it doesn't change into dust. But just in case, we'll have the workers put on their masks. We'll set it aside, cover it up, and dispose of it properly. So I thought I had 3 minutes, and it probably took 5. But that's kind of a quick summary of what we discovered. And in my opinion, I've been dealing with landfills now for 30, 40 years. This is one of the best closed landfills, ash landfills, that I've run across. And it's a good place for a park.
So how often are y'all going to check the water and soil quality moving forward?
We're probably going to stick with the frequency that's required by EPA, and I don't know what that is. Is that quarterly, Roger?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Is that the same that has been in the past?
Actually, it hasn't been done in the past. It's just starting up.
So that was kind of my point when the gentleman spoke about, I think we're going to have more oversight and make sure that this is done right and it's properly contained and everything's safe. Where, we're driving by it for the last 20-something years and it just hasn't had that same oversight. I'm not blaming anybody for it, but I just think it's a field. But now it's gonna receive more attention than it has in the past.
It is, and we haven't developed a sampling frequency for keeping track of soil, water, and/or air yet.
I think, I'm not going to speak for council, but I think we would expect that you do follow the same schedule as the EPA and make sure there's consistent tracking of this, just to be safe. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Anything else?
The only comment I'd like to make is I know that last meeting we talked about, was TDEC the proper entity that we get our counsel and advice from, and it was determined they were the body. And I know that we can't mandate anything, but I would like to, maybe in the form of a motion, ask the owner to follow those suggestions that TDEC spelled out for us. I feel like that it would not be good on our part as a governing body and as protection of citizens. I think this is a great plan. I think it's a good opportunity. I think it's 2 thumbs up, but I can't ignore the fact that it's still fly ash. And 2 articles in the paper this week I saw about fly ash, and fly ash anymore is a 4-letter word. 20 years ago, we didn't know what it was, but today it is. So I would like to ask that the suggestions that TDEC made, that the owner give great credibility to following those, just as due diligence on our part as a council. I mean, we do have the responsibility to make sure it's safe for our citizens. I don't have any doubt that it will be, but again, 20 years from now, 25 years from now, 50 years from now, I just feel like that as a council, we need to step up and maybe encourage that.
And for that data to be shared with the council?
Yes, yeah.
Can you add, will you add that?
And that data to be
Okay.
shared with the council.
Hear a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, what is our role here? I mean, I'd like clarification on where our oversight starts and stops, so to speak, and what authority do we really have?
I don't think we have any. I mean,
I don't think,
myself. I think we can.
personally think we have any.
I think we can
that-
encourage, I mean, I do think the citizens look to us
Right.
as a governing body to ensure the safety. And again, in my motion, I said encourage the owner. I mean, but it's private property. It's going to be developed privately. It's going to be taken care of by private funds. It's already zoned properly to allow this.
I think we would have some responsibility now that we're aware of
Yes.
everything. We've had TDEC in here. I think, they start building the park. And I had this discussion this morning with staff a little bit, that if we're aware that they've got up and spoke that they cannot disturb this 40-acre part of the park, that if we go over there tomorrow and see a backhoe digging into the fly ash part of it, knowing that they're not supposed to disturb that part, that at that point, we do have an oversight responsibility that we do call TDEC or EPA or somebody in. I think we do have that responsibility, since we have been made aware of it and aware that that's not supposed to be disturbed, that it could, at that point, cause a problem. It could cause a problem into the Clinch River, which could cause a problem to the citizens. So I think we do have some oversight into knowing that now.
So the city of Clinton's role in the Hollingsworth Foundation's park in South Clinton would be to monitor and watch and provide oversight to ensure that they're within the standards of the codes of the city, and to the extent that we understand that there's a fly ash from there, that we would monitor and maintain that they don't disturb that. That would be your opinion, what our duty
Yes, I think
to our
it would
citizens
be.
is.
Of course, we're not the Environmental Protection Agency or anything, but I think that's where, we've had, since I've been city manager, a couple times at the industrial park, and in industry dumping waste into Buffalo Creek. Well, at that point, we call TDEC or the EPA, and they come in. And it'd be,
But I
similar
think there's
type
some
thing.
confusion with our citizens that they think number one, that this city is.
No.
We're not the EPA.
I mean,
no.
I don't know if other councils
Oh,
been
yeah.
approached, but I've had a lot of concerned people from different various strains. Now, I will say it's 99 are in favor and 1 is in favor with a slight caution, So I think overwhelmingly, the town, the citizens, council is in favor of this, and just to reiterate the 2 thumbs up, I'm just trying to get a sense of, hey, what is our role? And let's don't overstep that role.
No.
Let's don't take on responsibility that's not ours.
We don't
right?
need- that we don't
You know,
need, right.
And then it seemed like to me that TDEC report had made a suggestion to allow TDEC to make it a brownfield
Brownfield.
program, and I don't believe that the foundation wanted to pursue that.
Right. And I think that's up to the foundation.
It's their
Okay.
choice.
That's their choice.
Okay.
But it looks like, the preliminary suggestions, you guys are going in that direction. You've assessed the line, right?
Right. Yeah,
You're sampling.
in response to that, all of the requests thus far that TDEC has made of the foundation has done. So it's the water quality sampling and soil sampling.
And then as long as we've got that, that, we just ask for counsel from TDEC. It'd be like going to the doctor and getting a prescription or telling you to stop eating whatever, and you don't stop eating it and you still get sick. You didn't follow the doctor's recommendation. I feel like it would be very negligent on our part not to encourage the following of TDEC's recommendation. Now, again,
Sure.
we're not going to police it, and we can't issue a citation to anyone if you don't, but I do think it would be smart. From what I understand, the brownfield helps a lot with liability. And again, that may be the direction that they choose not to go.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that the citizens know and that we know that liability doesn't flow to us.
To us. Right.
Any other discussion?
Are there any regulations to where once you do these testings periodically, you have to post those anywhere in the park?
Do we have to post those? Really, the answer is no. There are no regulations that require us to do that.
Any
But
further,
any report that we submit to TDEC becomes public information, and so it is public.
any further discussion pertaining to the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Can we put this document on the city
You're
website?
welcome to keep those.
Okay.
You mind, we want to put it on the city's website just for public information? Is that all right with you?
I just get Mike to email it to me,
Yeah.
that way I can put it there.
And I think anytime you do studies and you get samples and you get all this stuff, whatever you can share with the city to put out there, and the city needs to put it on there. I mean, because it's still, I know it's safe. I'm confident of the location of where it's safe, but it's still flash.
More communication, more better.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right. And I want to applaud you guys because you provided that information. You've communicated to not only us,
Good job.
but to the public. And you're doing, I think, all the right things you need to be doing. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
A lot of excitement going on in the city. I get calls and there's things going. There's things that maybe not everybody knows that's coming. That's going to be real positive. So I'm looking forward to the rest of 2019 and beyond. Anything else? Hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Means adjourned. Hey, how about that speaker? Taking a bigger, better picture.
I saw, that was the first time I saw that.